Here on the East Coast, 9 a.m. on the West Coast, I'm John Bauchman. Thanks for joining us today. President Biden and Attorney General Merrick Garland are getting ready to present their crime prevention plan solution to all this rising crime we've seen. They're going to present that to the American people later this afternoon. The president is hosting a number of big city mayors at the White House today, as well as other state and local leaders. We've seen this rise of violent crime across the country. We'll talk more about that coming up later. The plan itself will focus on illegal gun violence. Here is White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki at yesterday's White House press briefing.
It is an area where the president feels a great deal of the crime we're seeing as a result of gun violence. You can expect he'll speak to that and his commitment to continuing to address gun violence and gun safety in the country.
Of course, this is not the first time President Biden has stepped out in front of this issue. His track record, though, is not that great. Suspect, you might say. Flashback to the 1994 crime bill.
I hope this crime bill, when it passes, the Biden-Hatch crime bill, as it becomes law, God willing, I hope that we will have ended once and for all this notion that is a hangover from the 60s, that somehow Democrats are weak on crime and Democratic presidents are weak on crime and Republicans are tough on crime.
Well, weak, tough, whatever, the results is that crime bill had a disproportional effect on the African-American community, and not a good one. Let's welcome in now RNC Media surrogate and the executive director of the National Diversity Coalition for Trump, Bruce LeVell. Bruce, great to see you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, John. Happy Wednesday.
All right, so Joe Biden is going to head up a crime prevention plan, Bruce. Forgive me if I'm a little suspect here.
Yeah, well, you have every reason. And listen, as you saw in the trailer earlier, he wrote and authored the crime bill of '94, which Bill Clinton signed, which is called the Clinton crime bill. The other thing, too, for the viewers, he also implemented powdered cocaine being of a less severity than crack cocaine, which was another stab in the black community, which really affected a lot of the urban communities across the country. Listen, this president has no clue. And you see what happened historically when the federal government gets involved on trying to do a blanket approach on the entire nation, where every county, every city, they're not all the same size, basically. And local control, and I know that for a fact, I've served on a police board. As a matter of fact, I have more experience to go into this particular conversation than the President of the United States. I've served on a police board. I've been over an agency that had over thousands of employees as well as officers here in the Transit Authority in Atlanta. I know this wheelhouse very well. Local control works. First thing he needs to do is go on the national stage and apologize to the men and women, the brave men and women who serve to protect us.
Yeah, and there's nothing, and that's it, right, Bruce? This is really, they're just moving money around. There's nothing really substantial here. And if he were serious about, turning this wave of crime back, they would start exactly where you just mentioned, apologizing to police and admitting that defunding the police isn't working.
Yeah, and go to these cities like Portland. You see what's going on here in Atlanta. At least Mayor Lance Bottoms has sense enough not to run again, knowing that she caved into the woke crowd, allowed these autonomous zones, allowed a 4-year-old child to be murdered because she wouldn't deploy, and basically undermine the police chief's authority on protecting the men and women, the citizens, the businesses, et cetera. And this is not the only city, John. This is real talk around the country. Right. And go back to these cities where they allow these cities to burn. Friends of mine that lost their businesses in Portland, who were there 30 plus years, has not been able to come back because of this, quote, new defund autonomous zone. Many other large cities across the country. He needs to start with right there and going back and to restore confidence in our brave men and women. That's number one. But local control, we do a great job governing our own. And watch this, and you know this, John, most of the cities across the country, almost all, who are under conservative leadership, we did not allow that stupid craziness to come in and take over our cities and undermine our cities, et cetera. The cities that had the worst were under, quote, Democrat rule. And this is something he needs to go back and address and clean up his own mess before you're trying to come out here and govern all of us as another new law blanket across the country where we think one size fits all, and it doesn't. That's where he needs to start.
And the other thing, too, it's going to be interesting to try and see how they square this, Bruce, is because just last week, we heard from the Attorney General and also the Director of the FBI, and they were talking about domestic violent extremism, particularly white supremacy, is the biggest threat to our country. You know, and that's not really part of this discussion, is it? Because what we're seeing when it comes to the rise of crime in urban areas, this is not white supremacy. And so that, you know, they're having to change their narrative 1 week after this big announcement on what the real threat is to this country, supposedly.
Yeah, the real threat, once again, is undermining the brave men and women who wear that uniform, that protect us, so I can come on this show and I can operate my business here in Atlanta. That's where this comes from. That's where, once again, they need to start. That is the #1 issue that's going on in the country. John, without great public safety, there's no good businesses, there's no great schools, there's no great neighborhoods. Nothing moves in our great republic without a good, sound, comprehensive public safety program, period.
Public safety #1, and you know, we've seen not just a rise in violent crime across the country, Bruce, but we've also seen a shocking rise of officer-related deaths, cops killed in the line of duty so far this year. The statistics from the Officer Down Memorial page shows that. And I don't see how anyone who's not already on Team Biden takes this seriously unless the White House addresses that issue.
Yeah, well, this is my message to all the viewers, everyone out here. Is, you know, 2022 is coming up. You know, there's some city council seats, some state rep seats coming up. Please, please advocate and push great leaders in your community to go fill these seats. Good common sense people who understand balance sheets, who understand ministry, who understand church community, how important that is, who understands public safety. Please, Newsmax viewers, encourage those folks in your community to run for these seats coming up. So whatever idea this president comes up with, he will not have the backing of the American people, the representatives of Congress or Senate. So please, that is us. Now's the time, 2022, and all these city council seats, all these probate judge seats, Superior Court, and watch this one, John, very important here. District attorney seats.
Oh, district attorney seats, yeah, that's very important. This is what we talk about when we talk about grassroots, this type of stuff, local level stuff, shoe leather type political activism, those types of things. Bruce, we know a lot of people are getting involved. We saw the school boards video. We'll talk more about that coming up. Great to see you, though, Bruce. Look forward to our next conversation.
Thanks for having me.